He is one of the known person in the field of horticulture and insect pest management. Sir started his career in 1993 and he was awarded PhD and he worked on the tomato spotted wilt virus and he continued the vector for the same virus in his postdoctoral work. Thank you. So, sir is former Deputy Director General of Horticulture in Indian Council of Agricultural Research, New Delhi. Sir was also regional representative of Biodiversity International, South and Central Asia, and is former director of NBAIR, ICAR, Bangalore. Sir has is a PhD guide, and under his supervision, many of the students has graduated and worked for the horticulture and insect pest management. And I'm so sorry, I got distracted. So, sir is a recognized advisor, and he under his guidance, lot of PhD students has completed their work. Sir is also organized several scientific meetings such as National Meeting on Entomology and IPM, being the lead Biodiversity International. Sir has also has key role in organizing various meeting of agrobiodiversity and to international meeting and management of tropical red, banana, and very recently Vice President of Entomology Society. He has been very recently being Vice President of Entomology Society. Sir has many national and international awards. He is Vice President of Entomology Society. He is a recipient of Fellow Karnataka State Science and Technology Award, member of Advisory Committee, Foundation for Advanced Training in Plant Breeding, recipient of Nobel Award of Conservation of Biodiversity, and beside that, sir has around 110 national and international research publication, and he had edited a book in advance in insect pest management for horticulture crops. So now I will request sir to come and grace with his presence and give a lecture on the sericulture.
Afternoon to all of you. Thank you for the good introduction. Respected Mazumdarji, my colleague Dr. Dandin, Dr. Toteja, and all the other senior persons who are here. मद्रासी हूँ फिर भी हिंदी में बोल सकता हूँ. तो ऐसा लगता है कि बहुत अंग्रेजी हो गए हम. और it appears that why is it कभी कभी हमारी भाषा जो है उसमें हम कुछ बहस करें, then I think we are in a better position to understand. Bhagavad Gita becomes more easily digestible in your mother tongue. So also science. And I would like to make a brief presentation on the recent advances in sericulture, research and development. And I profusely thank all the persons who contributed for making these slides and also sharing the information. As you can see that when we mean silk in India, it almost for a very long time, it was assumed that it is Mulberry silk. By default, it was called Mysore silk, Kanjipuram silk, or आजकल slowly we are beginning to understand that there is a silk which is beyond Mulberry silk, at least among the common persons. ज़्यादा से ज़्यादा लोगों को टसार सिल्क की बात तो थोड़ा जानकारी होती है. But when it comes to Muga silk, they seem to have heard. They go to the shop, ask the rate, and after that they come back because it's too expensive for a person to buy. And of course, we have not fully exploited the eri silk in many areas where it can be made very useful. Silkworm as a component, there is oak tassar, talked about, not really mainstreamed. और जब शादी की बात होती है पहली, among the expenditure when we try to put it for marriage expenditure, the first thing that comes is Women are fascinated. I'm going to buy silk. It's a decision made, not asked. हम तो खरीदेंगे ही, और कितना खरीदना है वो सब अलग बात है. But it's a celebration. Silk is a celebration of life. Silk is a celebration of beauty. Silk is the celebration and the greatest translation of science into something which is so beautiful in human. It is not something like blue jeans which came 100 years back. It is something which has been there. Or in our tradition, if something has to be offered to God, the most pious, then you offer a silk. And if you use silk, you don't have to wash it. You can use it for any number of rituals without washing, because silk is considered sacred. The dirtiest movie in Hindi was made on silk. The most popular actor of those days was called Silk. And I used to tell Dr. Dandin, you are the second most popular man on silk, only next to the silk lady. So that I never can imagine a person becoming so famous simply with the adjunct name of silk. But then that is how the whole industry, कभी-कभी हम सोचते हैं कि we will bring an element of humor with science so that the things are better taken into the perspective. This is a slide which Dr. Dandin already showed. You can the mulberry, eri and muga and tassar. Of course, tassar is both oak and it also shows the different geographical regions where any amount of learning and experiencing silk is incomplete unless you visit a farmer who is rearing silkworm. You have to go to the farmer who is growing mulberry. You have to sit in his small hut where he is rearing silkworm. You have to go to these small yards where the silk yarn is being spun. So the saris are being woven. And finally the marketing, it can take place anywhere. Whether it is tassar silk or whether it is mulberry silk. But when it is other kinds of silk, like what we call vanya silk, the other than mulberry silk, it's equally necessary that you become part of the tribal culture to understand the intricacies of silk. Otherwise, it is like a package lunch. We'd never understand what goes. So no amount of this course is complete unless it is like when Mahatma Gandhi wanted to understand the country. If you want to understand this country, don't go in AC 2-tier, sit in a third-class compartment. Some farmer will bring his goat, somebody will bring his hen, and an illiterate farmer will be talking about politics. You can see all kinds of things. The grassroots level you will understand, and that's how you should understand silk. So that's what I would say, that this course should be followed by a visit to a place. India has the distinction of the only country in the world we produce all 5 kinds of silk. It is our heritage. And if you go to one of the districts in Karnataka, it is called as the silk district of the country. There is a minister for Sericulture in Karnataka. That's how it is important. Recently, last year, I visited a farmer's field. Then we asked him what was the impact of COVID-19. You will be surprised with his result. For 3 years, I did not cultivate anything, because if I cultivate any other crop and apply fertilizer or pesticide, I won't be able to cultivate mulberry next year. That's the way they had kept the soil barren, but they wanted to preserve it for cultivation of mulberry and sericulture. So you can see how best it is ingrained into our ethos. The same thing with, I think some of you, madam, were there and your student was there. You saw the beauty of tassar silk. There is also, we have not learnt a little bit. We have forgotten there is also a lot of silk in Srinagar. There is also silk in Northeast. There is also silk in the remotest corners of central India. Nagpur in Maharashtra is emerging as one of the strong centers. Northern Karnataka is emerging as the strong centers. and many other countries. Believe me, if tomorrow Vietnam and Cambodia begins to learn this and make it more popular, already Vietnamese silk and many others they are going to give a very stiff competition. With all this, silk has not been within the reach of the common man, but that has not prevented the common man from buying silk. So it's a paradox. Everybody would like to have at least one or two silks in their time, and the potential is enormous. The world's textile industry is booming. It's booming. Indian middle class is booming. India is going to be one of the richest countries, at least in the years to come. And most of it will also translate to real estate, but also having more and more sarees in the almirahs. So that translates to more and more business for silk. And how do we mainstream it is for us to take it further. This is a map which I would like you to understand with regard to the sericulture map, to where exactly which kind of silk we are doing. You can see, just if you take mulberry, it is there in the south. There is a huge patch, a little bit in the east coast, a little bit also in Kashmir, a little bit in central India, even very low some parts of northern Gujarat. It is not totally bereft of. As Dr. Dandit said, when we have mulberry in so many places, what really prevents us from having sericulture is only that. Yesterday I was talking to your husband when I said, you can see the distribution of mulberry and many other things. There is some continuity, but separated by a discontinuity in the art of sericulture. And why it is, can we join the links, is something the future research is. But the most beautiful part you should see is the Muga silk, which is the only country in the world where Muga silk, the golden silk, कितने भी साल आप घर में रखे, गोल्डन तो गोल्डन ही रहेगा और इसका ब्यूटी भी बढ़ेगा. And with a great difficulty I bought one for my wife, and she was thrilled to the heaven on that particular day, and it is something that is you cherish for life. Fortunately or unfortunately, when Prime Minister Modi went to the United States, he gave it to the president, among many of the things, Tassar silk he gave, and I was worried why he did not give Muga silk, because Muga silk is something which personifies the India, and that particular thing is something which he would have also advertised a lot more about Muga silk. So why I am trying to tell is, you may have a great gift, but you should also know how to package it in the right way. And Muga silk is something which needs to be packaged in that kind of a way in order to make our sericulture. Coming to state-wise uniqueness, the state-wise uniqueness is Andhra Pradesh. When I mean Andhra Pradesh, to some extent also include Telangana into this, because Andhra Pradesh and Telangana, they were almost of the one earlier. They are the second largest production. Quite a lot of silk production takes place in Telangana and Andhra Pradesh. Whereas Assam is the third largest producers of silk, but also known as one of the states where Muga silk is extensively seen in Assam, and it is highest in Eri and Muga. That means this Assam segment is one of the most important segments where our focus has to take place. Assam is also suffering a lot because of our tea, pesticide residue, tea, and many other things. And to what extent there are two types of commodities we talk in agriculture: low volume and high value. When you talk about low volume and high value crops, silk is one of the classical examples of low volume and high value crops. And those are the crops that the Indian farmer, doubling the farmer's income will not come through wheat and rice. Doubling the farmer's income will come through these kinds of products. And you have to make those kinds of necessary intervention. And for that, the planning has to take place in Delhi, when I mean in Yojana Bhavan. But the saddest part is, जो लोग बहस करते हैं पार्लियामेंट में, nobody understands agriculture. So there are two types of problems. One who make policies without understanding agriculture, and agriculturists who know the problems of agriculture but cannot take them to the policymakers. So this is a dichotomy that we are seeing in Indian agriculture and more. Of course, the state that I come from, Karnataka, कुछ लोग कर्नाटक भी बोलते हैं उसको, तो ज़्यादा नाटक भी होता है वहाँ. But Karnataka is the one of the, it's traditionally Mysore silk. When we mean Karnataka, don't look only through the prism of Karnataka. Karnataka, bordering areas of Andhra Pradesh, bordering areas of Tamil Nadu, this is one contiguous silk belt. And the Kanjipuram and Mysore silk, or the what you see in Andhra Pradesh, the weaving methods are different. The overall appearance of silk may be different. But cultivation of mulberry and silk rearing and the handloom sector is common over a large area. Thanks to the establishment of Mysore Sericulture Center and the able leadership provided by persons like Dr. Dandin, I would credit, but for Dr. Dandin, this country would not have had the bivoltine race, which revolutionized the sericulture in this country. And those kinds of very innovative breeding, those kinds of their tremendous dedication has what transformed sericulture. But it is like looking at whether your glass is half full or half empty. In fact, if I look at the glass, it is 1/5 only full and it is 4/5 of it is empty. That is our potential to go forward in the sericulture industry. We require, unfortunately, in the case of sericulture, the person who heads the sericulture is an Indian forest officer, Central Silk Board. So Ayaram Gayaram, 2 साल का मेहमान है, and no attachment. So as a result, the policy has suffered. The greatest transformations can come when we are able to make policy changes. When Narasimha Rao took a decision to reverse the established policy and open up the doors, we saw the Indian economy picking up. So those kinds of policy decisions are required in sericulture and in many other segments if we have to transform our what is a nascent industry, a nascent entrepreneurship into something which is global. And sericulture is waiting that to be discovered. मणिपुर, डर लगता है ना, मणिपुर बोलने से कुछ लोगों को डर लगता है. मणिपुर is one of the highest production of oak tussar. And this is what I meant. Any kind of disturbance that occurs in a region will set the barometer of product progress by decades. And this is where we have to be very careful. When it comes to Meghalaya, also it is in second position with regard to Eri and Muga silk. And Tripura, among the country, northeastern states, produces only mulberry silk. I'm little bit concerned about why only some mulberry, why only Eri and mulberry in some, why all the three in some others. And it is something that, and if you see, why don't we do it in other states? So those are all some of the things that needs to be the potentials that needs to be looked into. If you take the Indian statistics of silk, of course Dr. Dandin updated, we produce quite a lot of silk. I'll not go into the, but mulberry silk accounts for nearly 70% of it. Now, should we be proud of or should we not be proud of? In my opinion, I'm not very proud of that 70% of it is only through mulberry silk. Rather, the fulcrum should come more towards the other areas. We should not reduce the production of mulberry silk, but the percentage of silk that is coming should also, the fulcrum should go more towards the Vanya silk. The tussar silk is today morning, Dr. Dandin, the demand is high, the production is going low. There are many reasons. Climate change and the impact that it had on the host plants and other problems. The problems are sometimes very specific. In the case of tussar, in the last 2 to 3 years, there was one wasp which came and destroyed about 30 to 40% of the Dr. Rajagopal. That is a Vespa Ramakrishna, that which feeds on the Vespa cincta and Vespa orientalis and that group, which picked up the early instars from the naturally reared tussar, which caused about 40% loss. Now these wasps are wonderful in terms of biological control, but when it comes to sericulture industry, they are not blending with the nature. So how to manage this? This is called landscape management. ecological management, ecological engineering. How do we do this? This is something where मैं कहा ना, zoology department यहाँ बैठ के कुछ नहीं कर सकते. अगर जाना है तो वहीं जाना है और interact with the farmers. And like Dr. Swaminathan said, who said plants don't talk to you? Go very close to them, they begin to whisper into you. तो जाइए नज़दीक, and then you will be slowly begin to understand whether we can do some small modifications. The production of eri is going up, luckily. Applications are very high. But the greatest tragedy is, as I said, to me, something which is very unique to this country. Very unique to this country. And the sad again part is, when we talk about Europe, we talk about Germany, England, France. When we talk about Africa, we say Africa. We don't talk about Tanzania, Ethiopia, Mozambique. It is Africa. Or Northeast is also like Africa. We don't talk Meghalaya, Tripura, this, that. Northeast. I think the day we don't talk Northeast as Northeast, and the day our mind is automatically calibrated to think in terms, why don't we talk South India? You talk Tamil Nadu, Karnataka, Andhra Pradesh separate. But Northeast is Northeast. Now this mindset has to change if we also have to make a little more intervention into this. We export a lot from silk. But as I said, if you know how to do the marketing, there is an English statement, most of the great discoveries were made by the West. The money was made by China, Japan and Korea. All the discoveries of the diesel engines, that engine, all those things were discovered. But who made the money out of Toyota cars, Hyundai cars and this cars? East. Likewise, you should know how to science is one aspect, technology is one aspect, converting the technology into market is another aspect. We probably know an elemental of science. We are doing a grassroots level, cottage level technology, but we are absolutely, there is an English, one more, 3 लोगों को पूछा आपको 10 करोड़ दे देंगे क्या बनाएंगे आप? पहले एक तमिलियन को पूछा आप क्या बनाओगे? उन्होंने कहा भैया मैं फिक्स्ड डिपॉजिट में डाल दूंगा, डरपोक आदमी है जिंदगी में, मैं फिक्स्ड डिपॉजिट में डाल दूंगा तो आई विल बी वेरी कंफर्टेबल विथ वॉट एवर मनी आई गेट. तो एक सरदार से पूछा उन्होंने, सरदार ने कहा आई विल बाई ट्रक्स, आई डोंट हैव टू आंसर एनीबडी, आई विल ड्राइव माई ओन. एक गुजराती से पूछा, ही सेड आई विल पुट 5 crores इनटू बिजनेस एंड फॉर 1 lakh आई विल हायर ए मद्रासी. तो he was only SSLC. Now what I'm trying to tell is, how do you see in your organization, there won't be any Gujaratis who are come for teaching. You don't find any Gujaratis as scientists. They are in business. They know how to convert it into money. So this art of converting it into money has to come in silk. And Gujaratis are doing, not that they are not doing. But you have to grow a little more, and silk has become synonymous with saris. मैं सोच रहा था आप सब लोग सिल्क पे आएंगे, लेकिन excepting for 1 or 2, you have not really mainstreamed silk into your attire. The day silk becomes part and parcel of our kurta, pajamas or salwar or whatever, as much as possible, 130 crores people, when they mainstream silk, you see the quantum of flow that happens. Silk production, you can see that there is Dr. Dandin was telling about the bivoltine and multivoltine. Bivoltine performs very well in areas where the humidity, when we were doing the priority setting in research, what we wanted to do the priority setting is, we have to move from multivoltine to bivoltine because the quality and superiority and many other things. But when we are talking about high temperature tolerance, we found in our research, we are not addressing the issue of temperature and humidity together. For example, North Indian summer before July, August is different from after August. One is high temperature, low humidity, high temperature, high humidity. Now, you have to develop worms which are capable of not only tolerating high temperature and high humidity, but our shift also has to take place from multivoltine to bivoltine because that translates to good quality. Now this is something, a researchable issue that needs to be done. This is the very essence of what I was telling. But if you still say this is a production which you can see in the targets and what we have. Unfortunately, the production of late there is a lot of variation that is occurring from year to year. And the segment can only be stabilized if there is an assured production that is taking place for the whole thing to the mill to be churning. And that is something, the factors, each factor, what are the limitations in Tassar, what are the limitations in Eri, what are the limitations in other segments, which we have to one is listing the problems, prioritizing the problems, addressing the low problems so that you are able to one by one. No problem is very big unless you address more problems in segments. And that's where the research has to come. The intelligentsia is here, the necessity is there in the tribal regions. And we are able to do research sitting here with some pharmaceutical company in New York and Nebraska and God knows which place. But we are not able to connect that well with regard to the central India and many other parts of India, though we are a connected world through IT and many other things. So there is a lot more that can be done by these kinds of things. The trend analysis in production, if you take, you say that over the time we have made, when it comes to mulberry from bivoltine, you can see that from in the last 10 years, bivoltine has made a reasonably significant growth. Mulberry plantation is from only 18 to let's say whatever to 22, but as from 1984 to 5000, there has been quite a good amount of jump. As I said, is it the potential that I have done is something that you have to see. Where same thing when it comes to Vanya silk, there has been an improvement, but when it comes to Muga, you just see it is just 119 to 192. That means the rate of growth, the scientists and many of you will confuse you with the overall production figures. No, we are made from this much to this much. But if you say the rate of growth, then you will understand which segments are going below, which segments are growing, what needs to be interjected and where. And you can see this is also with regard to I'll not go into Dr. Dandin talked about the marketing with regard to, but if you say Rendita, of course, Rendita is, many of you, I don't know when he was talking, you to capture. What he meant was the total number of cocoons that is required to produce 1 kg of yarn. So, over a period of time, instead of 100 cocoons, with 50 cocoons you are able to get the same length of yarn. That means it's good. It's not a negative growth. So those kinds of things, we have to psychologically tune our mind to understand what it is to be produced. Now, India, one of the strangest things that in India, in silk and all the other crops is, we are the world's largest producers and the largest consumers. We don't export literally anything when we fruits, vegetables, except now in rice. You are exporting 40% of the rice and the whole world seems to be shivering. But earlier to that, we were one of the largest producers and the largest consumers. And certainly, I am not happy if we are exporting rice, but you should export spices and silk, whereby you should not make your money by exporting food grains. You should export your money through finished products and commercial products. Instead of commercial spices, if you are exporting technological service like software, it is even better. So what I'm trying to tell is, always export is not, but the Indian industry should capture the world market by setting up industry. Today, you can go to Africa, there are lands are available. You can go set up industries, develop those hubs. No matter what you do, ultimately the central link will be like a diamond trade. All the money in the diamond comes where? Surat. Akashat patitam toyam sagaram pratigacchati sarvadeva namaskaram keshavam pratigacchati. So likewise, wherever the Indians make money, ultimately whether they are going to invest it here. So likewise, you should develop a hub across the globe. And the world is looking for, once upon a time, even Louis Pasteur, the answers that he developed for the pebrine disease was because he tells everybody, I'm a microbiologist, I'm not an entomologist. Why are you coming out? Then the farmers tell, no, only you can provide the answer. Likewise, silk is known everywhere. And how do we capitalize that market? And it's also one of the greatest employment generators. We always talk about, oh, India's growth rate is this much. वो क्या एक term बोलते हैं our standard of living का GDP. Who cares about your GDP as to what is what? We are looking, would you like to know India's GDP is very high, or would you like to be really satisfied if 50% of our people are employed and they contribute to the overall GDP instead of 10% sitting at the top contributing to the GDP and all the others becoming drug addicts and doing nothing. So the real employment generation, that when Gandhiji said Grama Swaraj, when Gandhiji said anything that you earn without doing the labor is unworthy, that means we have to employ the people. An idle man's mind is a devil's workshop. So these are the industries which can provide an excellent opportunities for people and provide the projected raw silk production by 2030. It is, you can see as it is, you are now in 23-24. We require somewhere around 46,000 metric tons to 60,000. My guess is it is not a realistic estimate. The reason being, in between 2023 and 2030, the Indian economy is going to have a leap forward. Just last year, the share prices were around, the stock exchange prices were around 40,000, 45,000. In a matter of 1 year, it has gone to 65,000. That's a true reflection of the money that's flowing in the market. And they are expecting by 2023, you are going 2030 or 35, you are going to be one of the largest, third or fourth largest economy. And that money, घर में ज़्यादा पैसा है तो आप कहाँ डालेंगे? Either it is jewelry भी डर लगता है, क्यों? So now you see, nobody wants to buy jewelry. Everybody wants to buy junk jewelry, except the lady who comes for the advertisement. She is only fond of how much gold I have in my house. आप मेरे gold भेजो. Everybody has come with it. Other than that, nobody is. But the truth is, persons are not very comfortable buying hardcore jewelry, but somewhere they have to need an opportunity to spend. And whatever you spend, whatever you may say, all of you go home, open the almirah in your house and see how much you have, how much you are going to productively utilize. I am sure every house as of today, little middle class houses, will have at least 50 to 100 saris stored in their almirah. And the story continues. ये shopping का मतलब क्या होता है? मैं खरीदूंगा और. This is something which is human nature, I guess, and it's bound to happen. Marriages we are going to spend because everybody having only 1 or 2 children. And the father is very happy to spend very lavishly. Nowadays, even for flower arrangement, we are spending lakhs. But ek baar dekha, Pushpa marries Manu. I have never seen a groom marrying the bride. But it is only the bride marrying the groom. That's how the arrangement is, floral arrangement. But the marriages you are going to spend. I asked one of my relatives, why are you spending so much? He said, what else should I do with the money that I have? So these things are going to find, everybody has got one house. Their children are not bothered whether you give them a house or not. You don't know where they are going to stay. My son and daughter are in America and Germany, but I am living in an old age home is going to be the order of the day. In such a scenario, people are going to spend lavishly. The strength of sericulture is, uneducated people, it provides a tremendous, it's a low investment. You don't have to buy very fancy stuff. Low gestation period. I don't see many industries where every 30 to 40 days you can get regularly income. Provides high income compared to agricultural crop. This is something that agriculture can provide, without the government support system for the purchasing prices. Wheat and rice is not very economical, but sericulture is. As I told you, for 3 years they were ready to keep their land vacant, but still make money. It has both forward and backward linkages. That means it has a linkages with the graph right from the time you buy the farmer who is growing mulberry leaf to the one who is producing the eggs till the time it is woven into the market and taken further. It has both type of linkages. No pollution effect. Mulberry is one crop. Normally we expect no indiscriminate application of pesticides, nor indiscriminate applications of the fertilizers and many others. As a result, in sustainable development goals of the millennium, you have to have an integrated cropping system, and wherever possible, mulberry should be a part and parcel. Free and high quality extension support. I put a question mark. Free to hai, high quality, question mark. Can be practiced in various climates. It's okay. This is something. The mulberry yield leaf improvement. The sericulture has two segments. One is the worm, another is the leaf segment. Today there are a number of farmers who don't do rearing, but they are only supplying mulberry leaf. And that's also a big business. You just grow, harvest, and supply it to many excellent places. And you can see that the earlier mulberry was mainly not an irrigated segment. But now lot many farmers are coming. To give you an example, earlier the spacing between rows was pretty narrow. We used to maintain 2 feet. Now they want to make, labor has become so expensive, the gap between 2 rows is 8 feet because they want the tractors to operate. This is what I meant. When you go to the field, these are the things that you will beginning to see how transformations. When you ask the farmer, he simply tells, I am very happy, I cannot afford the labor. This thing is done through mechanization. And I was also sharing, if you visit a farmer who is practicing sericulture, he will be maintaining it like a temple. There will be a mesh, whether he sleeps in a mosquito curtain or not, there will be a mesh curtain for the windows. There will be very nice hygiene as you enter. There will be drip automatically when the temperature or humidity automatical foggers will come. He will protect all the surroundings so neat, nothing happens. He will protect as though it is in some ICU. That kind of an attention is provided by farmers. Otherwise, you lose the crop. In the case of silkworm, mulberry sericulture, if there is an infection, 100% is gone. So that's how they protect these kinds of things. Now, this is with respect to the cocoon productivity. Am I taking more time? You tell me, then I'll accordingly go further. This is with regard to the parallel in the raw silk productivity. As I said, from 8.9, you can see kgs 2, we have come to 7.4. That means the efforts that were put in to improve the quality of the cocoons has translated to less number of cocoons contributing to production of same unit of silk. Now, importance of sericulture to the Indian economy is, it's one of the unique product of a plant-animal interface. Plant-insect interface also is an appropriate term. Starting from soil to the production to high-fashion design wear. 6 million people it employs, quite a good number considering it is fragmented. Then 60% of the sericulture activities are women-based. कभी-कभी डर लगता है ज़्यादा importance हो रहा है क्या? More than what it should be given. Madam is telling no. No, you have to say no, isn't it? हमको तो डर लगता है कर्नाटक में all the women have to travel free bus pass. पता नहीं हमने क्या ऐसा गलती की है कि हमको तो free bus pass नहीं है. So Karnataka, the joke is if wife fights with the husband, she says I am going to my mother's place. क्यों बस free है? तो ये सब हो रहा है. Jokes apart, 60. If the women, see in our language, there is a proverb which says if a woman gets educated, it is like educating an institution. So, a little bit apart, I was once talking to Dr. Ramesh Chand about the population explosion in the country. And Dr. Ramesh Chand said, Kumar, you know what is the best contraception in the world? It is women's education. Women's education translates to less number of children, one of the finest answers to, but beyond a point, it can also be a problem where you have no children and the whole population grows great. So that's a thing that both ways you have to look into it, as we are seeing, as we are anticipating in the days to come. 3,240 crores only were exported. You can see either the data is wrong or what we are exporting is pittance. 50% of the final flows back to the farmer. See, this is one thing that is important. We always sell, अरे किसान को क्या मिलता है? लेकिन here, nearly 60% of the value the farmer gets, very eco-friendly and sustainable and labor-intensive. Sericulture and gender, though he talked, women take over the entire operations, especially when it's a household operation. They don't have to travel. You don't have metro पकड़ के कहीं नहीं जाना है, घर में कर सकते हैं. Production and decision making to a large extent also depends on women. Women's economic status improves. In Bangladesh, when we are talking about what are the factors that contributed to the success of Bangladesh, which was low per capita than even Pakistan, women's education and the Grameen Bank, which empowered the women, was one of the main reasons for the accelerated development of Bangladesh. Greater recognition. Once in Sanskrit you say that it is the recognition many a times is also comes through your economic status. The promoting women entrepreneurs in sericulture is development and empowerment. I mean, these are the statement. It involves less energy. When you don't have to have a great skill. It is spread over mother. She can do her cooking. She can take care of the mother. She can leave her child, come back again, attend to this work. It's not that, एक बार आपने तब इम्प्रेशन लगाया 5 बजे तक ऑफिस में ही बैठना है, ऐसा नहीं है. Infant care during silkworm rearing, job at your doorstep, and it's an additional income to the family resources. Now, you can see that percentage of women labor. You can see that more than 90% of the weaving is done only through women. And 80% in reeling and spinning, 73% rearing. Mulberry cultivation, of course it is 50-50, maybe a little less, but in other aspects, percentage of women labor is. And in the case of rearing also, I'll not go into this, these are the different activities. I'll share the slides, but the take-home message is, women play a very significant role in the overall aspect of sericulture. This is a farmer in Malda with doing the bivoltine. Now the Malda is a very beautiful, one of the traditionally well known for making very thin silk even during Mughal days, where it is said that the whole sari can be packed in a box and thrown. And it is said that, and if many of you know the Mughal stories, how this used to be smuggled. He quarreled and threw a slipper, and in that there was a small, I don't want to go into the stories. Malda is also one of the centers where the silk is produced, cocoons are produced in Kashmir, but the weaving takes place in Malda. Malda, कितने लोग माल्डा देखे हैं? मैडम तो देखी होगी शायद. देखा आपने? Malda is the eastern gateway of India. Malda is bordering Bangladesh. Through Malda, there is a national highway going all the way up to Thailand. In the Look East policy, if you develop Malda, you have business in the east. एक बार देखिए Malda. Uttar Bangla, you didn't go to Uttar Bangla anytime? Malda is a very beautiful place, very famous for Malda mangoes. 70% of our onion goes through Malda to Bangladesh. Lot of Bangladeshis, lot of narcotics cultivation, very good vegetation. एक बार देखिए. I'll not go into the trend analysis and employment and others. Profitability from sericulture, you can see that there is a good amount of profit. Today morning also we were talking about, me and Dr. Dandin. There are very few structures where a regular income that comes every 30 days with very low investment. If there has to be one, it is sericulture. And now there is a segment called as chaki rearing. Chaki rearing is Earlier, the farmer used to have a lot of risk from rearing first instar to the last instar. Now what they are doing is, they rear up to second instar, and then other instars only you have to rear. You pay a little more for, instead of seed, you give the seedling. Likewise, you can make money even quicker, and you don't go through the process of the little bit of the early instars which are more sensitive. Now this is with regard to the same farmer. You see the happiness. ऐसा लगता है कि झोपड़ी में रहने वाले हैं, but believe me, they are more richer than us. लेकिन पता नहीं चलता है. The global raw silk production, he made a comparison. But the one point of it is very wrong to assume that we should be self-sufficient in everything. अगर चाइना ज़्यादा करेगा तो करने दो, हमको क्या है? You produce as much as you want. But any day I would like to make more money from what I produce by exporting silk. We should not be self-sufficient in everything. Japan imports coriander leaves. So what? They export Toyota cars. So you should not say, oh, Japan is insufficient in coriander leaves. These kinds of logic, mindset has to change. Poor countries export agricultural produce. Rich countries export F-16s. Mulberry, I will not go into the other aspects which regard to, but you can see that if you compare, China's one of the greatest advantages, it is 100% bivoltaic. Whereas in India, bivoltaic is around 28%, as Dr. Dhanil said. So you cannot compare apple and oranges. And egg production, you can see that China it is more, but in China, in India, about 85% is chaki reared, 100% is nearly chaki reared in China. And they do it we do it throughout the year. Of course, they don't have that kind of an advantage. One thing also, we should learn a lot from the Chinese. They are highly enterprising people. They are highly enterprising people. It's one of those countries where the country is communistic, but all their economy is business oriented. There are two kinds of states in India. Kerala is one state where the people are very rich, the government is very poor. There are some states where the government is very rich and the people are very poor. I will not name the states. So China is a country is socialistic in pattern, but highly enterprising. They are one of the smartest business people around the world. So this is just what we are talking. China exports 90% of its silk, and we are only mostly domestic. See, this is what I meant by translating technology into money. So this is where we are losing quite a lot in terms of it. Now, very big, a little, I come to the Vanya silk. Northeast is the home for the Vanya silk. Northeast. So again, I'm using the word Northeast. It is now not 7 sisters, there are 8 states now. Moga silk is one of the rarest silk in the world. अगर आपके पास नहीं है, किसी के पास, एक खरीद लीजिए. It is produced only in Assam in India, and we have already genome sequencing of Moga silkworm has been done. The one good thing about Moga silk is it doesn't lose the luster for any number of years you keep, and the silk is golden. ऐसा क्या है उसमें? Whether we can take it to other silk through genetic engineering is something that needs to be looked into. Central Silk Board is asked to inspect Moga. We don't have certification also. Because no matter China, whatever they export, we are greatest duplicators in the world. किसी को भी एक ठप्पा लगा के डुप्लीकेट माल को बेचते हैं, ये मोगा सिल्क है, ये. We need that kind of a quality certification. Eri silk is also a pride. Eri silk is a tremendous potential to the saris and segments beyond saris, which need to be really looked into. And the silk share is, Eri silk share is 69% of the total Vanya silk is only coming from Eri silk. Now Eri by default is castor. Castor is present all across the India. Gujarat में भी है, सब जगह में है. तो Eri silk कहीं भी हो सकता है, लेकिन क्यों नहीं कर रहे हैं? सब लोग दिल्ली में बैठे हैं बस, देख लीजिए। Vanya silk, in case of tassar, see, each one has got a beauty of its own. You cannot compare a desert is beautiful, a mountain is beautiful, a sea is beautiful. Tassar is beautiful, Mysore silk is beautiful, Kanjipuram is beautiful. But you cannot compare one is more beautiful than the other. Though I prefer Mysore silk over others. Because Mysore silk is very light. And वो luster होता है ना Mysore silk में, वो किसी में luster नहीं है. Whereas Kanjipuram silk is a little heavy. You cannot wear that comfortably, but it is very durable. Whereas tassar is a little rough silk. And Vanya, everything is good except it pinches your pocket. So there are advantages and disadvantages. In between, there are so many other types of silks in India. Like you said, in Maharashtra, there is only one peacock brand, which probably Sachin Tendulkar can only afford. So those kinds of silks are also there. And the diversity is there. When you make these things on a large scale, the price will come down. The Vanya silk by default, why we call it as, most of these silks are rare naturally on the trees. You cannot domesticate them but for a little bit of eri silk. Among the Vanya silk, only eri is domesticated. Eri silk is also referred to as ahimsa silk. It bothers me a lot when every time I think a cocoon is boiled in hot boiling water for the beauty of the silk thread and it pinches. So a little bit of ahimsa silk in future is going to have in the market. The Vanya silk production is increasing. Government of India policy is lot of Vanya silk. The Government of India is giving tremendous importance. If you want to get a project, write it on Vanya silk. In all probability, you are likely to get it. But tap the right resources. Indian handloom and power industry, we are also giving, Assam has got the maximum number of handloom weavers. And if you say that 90% of the handloom weavers are women, you can see what is their contribution to how much it is making a difference. And just because I have highlighted Assam, it does not mean that only Assam. You can see whether it is Tamil Nadu or Tripura or Uttar Pradesh. There are tremendous number of handloom weavers and who are giving a handloom is a big industry in the country, and we should not lose sight of it. The other one is the eri silk. You can see that, as Dr. Dandin said, at different stages it produces a. The only thing with the case of eri silk is sometimes the scales that come out of the moths, it is considered that it is not very safe and it can choke the lungs and such other things. So those who are working on these kinds of moths, we would advise them to wear the mask and work. Now this is the kind of, see the women, the participation. ये लोग जो men जो बैठे हैं सिर्फ फोटो के लिए आए हैं, ऐसा काम करने वाले नहीं है. तो you can see the kind of production that takes place and some of the innovations that they themselves have made, whereby they make them into a bouquet, where the worm is rare. And these are all some of the things of the northeastern women. And believe me, if they were not economically empowered, we would have been in a very poor state of affairs. Now the amazing thing is, eri is, I'll complete in about 5-10 minutes. Is it okay? Or otherwise I can run through. Eri is a very fine and soft silk, and it has got a natural shine and less maintenance. As today Dr. Dandin said, silk sarees, if you don't regularly use, where you make a fold, they develop a tear. So that I was always telling, in our textile industry should come out with a kind of weaving where the folding region should have a kind of threading whereby even after the fold it doesn't tear. That will make a difference. But that requires a certain amount of research, where the collaboration between the textile industries, the weavers, as well as all these people have to come. And it doesn't hurt if a few threads of tassar comes in between Mysore silk where the folding has to take place and suitably see what best can be done. It is strong, elastic, durable, slightly expensive as compared to, not as expensive as others. It can retain high moisture. See, one thing which always they say in silk is, in summer this is not comfortable to me. But I think tassar is okay, right? Tassar is reasonably comfortable in summer as compared to many other types of silk. It stays warm in winter and cool in summer. I don't know whether it stays cool in summer, but tolerable. Blends well with, this is important, it blends well with wool and cotton. And versatile, it is used in many types of home furnishings. Production of eri silk is increasing quite a lot. And the food plants are we have castor, no doubt, but in addition to that, we are now putting a lot of importance to see that tapioca is one of the most important crops grown in Northeast and many other regions, and how best we can use tapioca for successfully rearing. Are there any advantages? Can the cost of cultivation be brought down? Can there be a superiority quality parameters? So many things that have to be looked when we rear it on different host plants. I think that's where the botany department should come. You should do a quality profile of the different silks when it is reared on different hosts in different agroecological zones. And these are also where there are different races within the same, whether it is a tassar or eri, you have so many races, ecotypes. Ecotypes in relation to the host, in relation to the quality parameters of the silk and the fitness of the, these are all some of the things that is, I think, the future areas of research. And naturally, they have come out. There is also one school of thought about domestication of the Vanya silk. Today, myself and Dr. Dandin were telling, it will be a very sad day because if you domesticate, they will lose their fitness. So the question is, maybe in small areas, you should maintain the traditional way, traditional land races. Not that research should not be attempted on domestication. You do it, but not at the cost of losing their genetic fitness. This is a catch-22 situation, and that is how the research should go. Eri silkworm also, parallelly, lot of improvement is taking place. There are new eri breeds that are coming with high fecundity, and eri rearing also is becoming popularized. And you can see the bamboo rearing platforms, how people are becoming, agar kuch puchna hai to beech mein puchiye, koi baat nahi. So they are coming out, and you see, I always saw when two village workers are working, they are doing rice transplanting, they do laugh, they smile, and they will be doing. I mean, don't mistake me. कभी-कभी यूनिवर्सिटी में जाता हूँ, एक एसोसिएट प्रोफेसर दूसरे एसोसिएट प्रोफेसर से बात ही नहीं करता है. अरे मेरा सिलेक्शन होना था, ये आ गया यहाँ बैठ के लिए, तो बात ही नहीं करते. And you see the faces in their children. They are all smiling. There is nothing. They are sitting with the eri silk. They are enjoying the colors, and I see that this among the tribal, people who are agricultural laborers, they enjoy what they are doing. I have never seen a farmer who says boring agriculture. And some person who is employed in Infosys, or you ask, what are you doing? Arey yaar, boring. I am a data entry operator. Savere se shaam tak ek hi kaam karna hai. This is the different types of eri. You can see the beauty of how eri can contribute. Pure eri shawl and some of the very beautiful material. We have not really taken. कभी-कभी मैं बोलता हूँ कि दशहरी mango, ये आपका मालदा भी. If I go to south and say Malda, nobody knows this is a mango variety. If I say Dasheri, south, nobody knows this is a mango variety. And similarly, if I say Banganpalli, nobody knows in Amritsar what is Banganpalli. Within the country, so much is there. Or achar ka bhi. Pickles is a classical, like sericulture is a women-dominated industry. आप कहीं भी जाओगे, लक्ष्मण भोग, सीता भोग, ये भोग होता है. And you go to other place, every 100 kilometers there is a pickle ecosystem operating. And it's $1 billion industry. And the entire world, कभी यहाँ से कुछ हमारे बच्चे पढ़ने के लिए बाहर जाते हैं, माँ उसको मसाला and pickle बेचती है. और वहाँ से आने में, why don't you get me an electronic component? These are the normal things we ask. But how we have really taken the pickle outside our We have not done. Likewise, these are some of the segments which really require upholsteries. And the one segment is coming of Dr. Raman with regard to some of these things as protein. I am not a great person who says that anything on earth that is moving, we should consume for our own protein. I think these proteins have to be not looked from the protein perspective, but from the amino acid perspective. What special amino acids they can give or not give. But don't make, just because it contains omega-3 fatty acids, I think it will be a sad day if I start consuming when it is available in many other fish and many other things. Anyhow, for those of you who want to see how best it can, you can look into. Constraints are very small holdings, non-maintenance of systemic host plantations, not a scientific method of rearing, shortfall in rearing houses, non-availability of quality foliage during winter, improper. These are all I'm going to share. So please use in each segment. After a lot of discussion, we have retained what are the constraints in each of the sectors. And each of the sectors is a researchable issue and how we can make specific intervention. Of course, there are so many, Central Silk Board has got so many different institutes. My advice would be that visit at least each silkworm rearing unit or the research station associated with it. You will enrich your knowledge. We also have to conserve the germplasm along with it, because Vanya silk is closely associated with its germplasm, and conservation of the germplasm. For those of you, madam, any pollen cryopreservation of this germplasm is happening. Now this is something, an area where pollen cryopreservation of the germplasm of some of these wild species should take place, because we don't know what we are going to lose in the deforestation program in the days to come. Second one is, during the off season, you can very selectively use these kinds of pollen for selected breeding purposes. If there is a lack of synchronization between male-female flowering, pollen cryopreservation helps. You can do double haploidy studies. I mean, there is a window of opportunity that is. And second one, why I preserve, always look into, this is a little going, is when it comes to animals, animal genetic resources are conserved through semen banks. You don't maintain a Jersey 5,000, 10,000 cows for a germplasm. We just maintain a semen bank. But when it comes to plants, we are shy of cryopreservation of pollen. And pata nahi kyon. You can't maintain in future huge genetic gardens, but this cryopreservation is something that holds a lot of promise. Another aspect is why we are falling short of China is we are not very smart in making small holding machineries. Our machinery is absolutely poor, outdated, crude. And this machinery should get out of the public sector, and we should ask the private sector to participate. Public sector makes machines, they are so heavy that no farmer is ready to adopt. And marketing, there is no impetus. So these are some of the things which देखिए वो कैसा बैठा है stool पर. His method of sitting on the stool itself is not comfortable. Spinning devices for tassar, we have to go miles. Then we identified the needs of the tassar, robust breed, molecular breeding. Molecular breeding, as Dr. Dandin said in case of mulberry, molecular breeding, molecular aspects, marker-assisted selections, many things can make. I think Dr. Raman, Rajagopal, I think these are some of the things where some aspects can be looked on the very specific aspects with regard to some of this disease resistance and whatever, gene pool, antimicrobial, thermotolerant. In thermotolerant, in case of, in botany or in plants, we subject the pollen in a cavity block on a hot plate, and then see the pollen germination to see whether we can do it with thermotolerance using the silkworm sperms. And parallelly, you can use them with regard to their breeding purposes. So these are some of the things where we need those kinds of, and high temperature and high humidity. So those are some of the things that can be looked into. This is with respect to the Muga. With regard to Northeast, still wild. Brahmaputra Valley is the home. Ethnic symbol of the 8 sisters. Tribal communities are the sole custodians. Continuous inbreeding and genetic deterioration. Now, this continuous inbreeding is a classical example of the inbreeding depression, which takes place because we are not bringing those kinds of external alleles into the things. Now, have we quantified the inbreeding depression? Is it regional? And how much it has deteriorated? How much I can do? Again, I have to inject the new moths from the wild to restore that inbreeding depression or to arrest the inbreeding depression. These are all some things which can be very beautifully done, probably through actual experiments and also through simulation models. Simulation models can go to, in this particular case, quite a lot. The primary food plants are sown and many other secondary food plants are also there. And you see the luster of this Muga silk. It's just beautiful. And don't look at the size of the larvae. Look at the silk from the larvae than simply consuming the larvae for food. I'm a vegetarian, so these are traditional methods have come. But the greatest enemy of anything is monoculture. The day you begin to do everything through a monoculture, your problems are inbuilt, it is going to come. So this is something with regard to how the farmers, they take the worms, are left it on the plants, they again the harvest, bring it. I think if there is Dr. Dandin, if there is a special mission, especially for the upgradation of Muga silk, we are going to significantly contribute to the nation. And this is with respect to the maintained gardens, the primary host of this thing, Muga. In addition to that, they also come. See, farmers have developed their own methods, how they should crawl onto the bark. They develop their own structures through bamboo. And these are the systemically soluble plant, gardens. Other host plants of the silkworm, they call Diloti. And this is the other Listia cubi. I think you guys know much more than me, some of these things. As I said, sometime, because when you rear everything outside, whether it is humidity, they are also susceptible to pebrine and many other diseases, and also the natural infestation of other parasitoids or predators. So you have to develop the shade, low-cost netting if they can prevent quite a lot. These are all may be economical, may not be economical. But if a sari costs 40,000 rupees, I won't be afraid of putting a shade net if I can rear the Muga silkworm. So you have to work out these kinds of economics. There are different plants and some improvement is parallelly going on. We have quite a lot of grassery fly. Some of the diseases which are common to mulberry are also common to this Muga silk. But here, the Central Silk Board has come out with some good processes or innovations where you can do a quick diagnostics whereby. But as Dr. Dandin and me were today talking, the seed chain is one of the most unscientific in some of these things. Mulberry, to an extent, it has come okay, but in these segments, the seed chain is absolutely poor. So there are other diseases, pebrine and many others. There is also Uzi fly which came from Japan purely because our quarantine was very poor. Now you can see that Uzi fly is there, but not a great menace. But still farmers use the nets and some pheromone traps and many others. You will see when you go to there. In 2020, Dr. Dandin and many others were involved in coming out with a national silk policy which has set the guidelines as to what should be our national silk policy, how we should go further in different segments. And I think a country, if it can have such policies, something which will significantly. What are the challenges in sericulture? Urbanization and industrialization. Nobody wants to take many more mulberry. Everybody wants to do real estate. And that's spare money, drought, depleting water table, climate change. Gaps in adoption of the technologies. Now the farmer's son is not interested in farming. आजकल हमारे यहाँ कहते हैं, यहाँ पता नहीं, इफ यू आर ए फार्मर नोबडी इज रेडी टू गिव यू अ गर्ल इन मैरिज. अरे कोई गांव में क्या रहना है. So this stagnation in silk exports because of increasing. I won't accept with this. The thing is, you have to know how to market, how to reduce the cost, placement segment. Preference for blended and synthetic over pure silk. The same logic that applies for artificial jewelry versus real jewelry, same thing applies to silk. Anything that is glossy, if it is less expensive, we call it synthetic silk, has come in a big way to the market, and it will come. But the value of a real silk will remain if you can know, and in the traditional this thing, inconsistency in supply of high quality. There is a need for ahimsa silk. We need to go 100% buy wall type. हो गया, another 2-3 minutes.
थोड़ा उसका
And we have to have efficient seed chain. The policy is we have to do area expansion in non-traditional areas. There are not many areas where we have not done non-traditional area, weather forecasting, climate resilient host, transfer of technology in sericulture. Transfer of technology now lies totally with the silk board. Whereas the KVK is associated with ICR. ICR tragedies, ICR doesn't touch tea, ICR doesn't touch rubber, ICR doesn't touch coffee, ICR doesn't touch silk. But farmer is an integrated farmer. So this is something that has to be done. Machinery, as I said, utilization of byproduct, mulberry varieties, improved silkworm, integrated nutrient management, because nutrient management translates to quality. So these are some of the things. Poor credit flow. There is no group approach. Maharashtra succeeded in many of the crops like grapes, pomegranate, because there is a group approach. Coffee has a group approach, but in silk, it is exploitation. Very low mechanization, weak extension, low production, limited crops in the northern zone. Dr. Dandin said there is a lot of mulberry. I stand to get corrected. There is a lot of mulberry in the north, but how to blend it? Policy for R&D Vanya is host plant improvement, breed improvement, conservation of ecoraces. Very, very important. Conservation of ecoraces, because ecoraces, if you lose it forever. And conservation of indigenous germplasm. Greater efforts is required in price stabilization. One of the things is, in case of mulberry, there is some price stabilization. But when it comes to the other segment, price is something where there is a question mark. It should be totally, farmers should not be exploited. We don't have cocoon or banks. Export promotion. I mean, what are we really doing in this country as export? I was in Krishi Bhavan. In Delhi में कभी-कभी आप देखा है, cultivate olives, and there used to be a board. Even tobacco, I saw many times the boards used to come. Please save our farmer, because there used to be tobacco farmer advertisement. See, because government said we will ban cigarettes, advertisement used to come. A farmer who is also cultivating tobacco is a farmer. Please save us. Now these are segments where they are settled. But when it comes to silk, I don't think there is any advertisement in anything. Non-traditional market UAE advisory board for the different ministries. We have to meet different central silk board, Ministry of Commerce, Ministry of Textiles. टेक्सटाइल वाले अलग देखते हैं, कॉमर्स वाले अलग देखते हैं, सिल्क बोर्ड अलग देखते हैं. You cannot have synchronization. Silk exporters, brand promotion. We have Mysore silk is branded. Others are not branded. Product mix and market, intellectual property. This intellectual property and intellectual capital, if you don't, it's going to be a day when somebody else is going to take away everything and say it's mine. So The other one is duty rationalization, exemption for silk machinery, GST exemption on silk machinery, anti-dumping, China anti-dumping policy, like we did in case of computers now has to be there. Foreign direct investment in sericulture, I'm not, it's up to, we have to be very careful. Human resource development, capacity building, extension, community-led FPOs, community resource persons, enterprise, trade desk. There is no trade desk central silk board. दिल्ली में बैठ के चेन्नई में see our airports we go, how much really we advertise silk? ये दारू का इतना advertisement होता है, इतना advertisement दारू का होता है. When you come to Delhi airport, if you have पंजाबी next to you, अरे भाई साहब आपका पासपोर्ट दीजिए, मैं भी तो उसकी लेके जाना चाहता हूँ. But when it comes to silk, hardly any real promotion from the government sector. So we have to go a long way, and I said east or west is not the, I add north or south also I add, east or west, north or south, silk is the best. So thank you very much. I shared some of my views. Take the slides, and if there are any specific questions, I'll answer.
Any questions?
If there are no questions, you have understood everything or you have not understood anything.
So it was amazing lecture. I guess everyone understood everything.
Thank you.
Sir, my name is Sunil Singh, and I have one question, sir. Sir, why NCR farmers are not growing, say, why they are not producing the silk, sir? Although we have very good climate, and supposed to do something fine, sir.
The silk by default, you have to be, it's a tradition. It's a tradition. Even in farmers, you see, a wheat farmer is a wheat farmer, a vegetable farmer is a vegetable farmer, a carrot farmer is a carrot farmer. They don't easily change. And in the case of sericulture, it is a science as well as a lot of art that goes into. For example, in our areas, if you are smoking cigarette or BD or anything, it will have an impact on the. So the type of how you chop the leaves, what kind of leaves you give, how do you see the. So it's a lot of, it's a knowledge based. It is what we call it as. What is that we say for grapes and others? Highly science oriented. It takes time for them to get. It's not so. Even in South, not every farmer is a mulberry farmer. If you are traditionally inbuilt, you do it. There are many farmers who don't do it. So it has not come in the culture, it has not come in there. But it's not rocket science, it can be done. Precision farming, that's what I was saying. The term I was looking. Sericulture is a precision farming.
Any other question?
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. It
Thank
was really amazing lecture. I personally enjoyed it very well. Now I will invite our principal, Professor Ravi, to take.
Thank you.
Sir, please give me
Thank you, sir. Thank you. It was really amazing. Wonderfully presented. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
I have some leaflets from the Central Silk Board, which whoever wants can take. Let me see if I can. This is in addition to some of the things around silk.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
You actually pointed out very correct problems which we are facing. I'm from a farmer family,
Good.
like my grandparents were.
Yeah.
So I understand like the mentality, how it is.
It is.